Welcome back to Animal Crossing New Horizons. I'm dear darling, and shall we see what's going on our lovely island of Fawnhallow today, as we'll be relaxing as per usual. Man, we have a lot of topics I feel like we need to talk about, like all the time. I will say they're definitely my fault, but I've been recording super late, so I haven't really had a chance to. Granted, now, today I'm recording just before the stream, so, well, technically we have a little bit of limited time. There is certainly a lot more time to actually speak about things, which is nice. So, hello there everyone. Right now in Fawnhallow, it's 1:39 PM on Sunday, July 5th, 2026. Yes, I will. If you can tell by today's title, I'm going to be talking about the movie Obsession, because I had a fortunate opportunity to watch it, not yesterday, but day before yesterday. Basically, we watched it like in like the early afternoon, just before we went to a music concert for the rest of the evening and night. So it was a really crazy vibe. Obsession, I will warn you before I get into any spoilers about it. I normally do light spoiler warning, and then all bets are off spoiler warning. But with no spoilers, it is a fantastic movie, a fantastic horror. I'd put it kind of like psychological thriller kind of horror, more than like, you know, like a paranormal or like a slasher sort of horror, which is the horror I absolutely love. I love horror. Hello Judy. My favorite horror movie is Hereditary, and I will say Obsession is basically competing with Hereditary in top 2 horror movies. Like it's really good. So, I guess the mildest of spoilers, if you don't even want to know the premise, like trailer level premise, but if you don't know what Obsession is, it's a indie movie. It's made, you know, surprisingly, by apparently a YouTube channel, which I didn't really know that well, and still don't really know that well. I need to watch some of their stuff. Who's this? Darla? No, it's, Curly. So like a YouTuber, and they've made some indie horrors in the past. They made The Chair, which is the only one I've heard of from them, but I've not actually seen. And Curry Baker, I think was the director's name. I can't remember exactly. But the entire premise is basically a movie about, shall we say, an obsessive relationship. I think that's being a little bit reductive, but essentially there is a friend, or there's a person we follow, a very lonely person, who has a bit of like a crush, shall we say, on this girl, but doesn't have the courage to really tell her that he loves her or has a crush, and makes a wish which supernaturally comes true. And he makes a wish that she would love him more than anyone in the entire world. Or maybe anything in the entire world, I can't remember the exact phrasing. And then it basically follows, and this is underselling it and putting it very lightly, the hijinks and the fallout of that wish when someone becomes so unbelievably obsessed with you. Like unbelievably obsessed. Like I'm not talking about like obsessed like I can only think of you. I'm talking about like I can only live being with you, essentially. Obsessed. And it's phenomenally acted by the two main leads, Michael Johnston as Bear, and Indy, I don't even know how you say her name, like Navarrete or something, as Nikki. Just phenomenally well done. And yeah, like it's what I would say is it's a really stressful movie to watch, which I kind of love, because I kind of like it when the movies are pretty stressful, you know, because I feel like horror generally doesn't like jump scares do startle me. I'm not going to pretend like I'm immune to jump scares, but I feel like the tension doesn't get me as much as it necessarily gets other people. But this is it's not quite real life, because obviously it's got supernatural elements in, but I think more like the effects of it feel quite grounded, opposed to Hereditary, which feels quite sort of well, Hereditary starts off, mini spoilers I suppose, quite grounded, and it gets quite supernatural, which is totally fine, but it gives a different sort of fear. This one, the entire time, feels pretty like, if a data definitely taken to the extreme, still pretty grounded. Again, ignoring the supernatural part of that, the fact that a wish becomes true, which just makes it incredibly scary, because the entire movie, I would say, from like like, it doesn't even take that long to set up a premise. Like, it's really, really short. It must be like 15-20 minutes until we basically get into the wish, which is when everything starts happening. You think it's going to be like a slow build up where it's like, oh, she's gonna, so I guess mild spoilers from here on out, she's gonna start acting a little bit strange, she's gonna be a little bit different. It's gonna be like pretty subtle, and it's gonna like start kicking off. It goes immediately into the uncanny, into the weirdness so quickly. And then it only escalates from there. There's very little breathing room in this movie. In fact, there's one like scene which is basically breathing room, and if you know what scene I'm talking about, then you know how quickly it gets dismantled. But it's so good at basically never giving you like a chance to sort of breathe. Like every single quiet moment, like basically the entire movie is punctuated by Nikki's psychotic, obsessive behavior. Basically punctuating every single scene. So even when you have quiet scenes, slower scenes, things which don't feature her, you're just like, when's she gonna appear? You know what's gonna happen. Just when will she do it? And how will she do it? Which is incredibly stressful. But yeah, like, the movie is fantastic because I'm gonna say all bets off now for spoiler warnings. So if you haven't gone to see it yet, absolutely go to watch it. Stop watching this video. Although I will say, potentially just be warned. Like, it can be, I would assume, quite triggering, just depending on like what experiences you've had, maybe with like toxic relationships in the past, or like extremely possessive behavior. I could definitely see it being very sort of like triggering in that sense. So just be careful, know what you're getting into. Okay, so all bets off spoiler wise now. It's a really cool story, like, because obviously on a surface level, it's like some supernatural sort of spooky horror, which is with a very sort of bleak ending. But I think it's one which also does nicely to explore a lot of sort of like themes about, the idea of control and consent. Because basically, I mean, Nikki's entire autonomy is being ripped away from her. Surprisingly, apparently this movie is not meant to be a possession movie, according to the directors, despite the fact it very much comes off as one, in my opinion. But all her autonomy is basically taken away from her in service of Bear, right? And there's sort of like wrestling back and forth. Like, there's a lot of things about Nikki before like trying to sort of break free from this sort of like hold she has. She's leaving her job because she wants to do more, and now she's sort of like locked into it because of Bear. They're like and I'm trying to think like what else to explore. Like, Bear is a very, very lonely. There's a lot of like isolation and sort of like not being upfront and being explored, and the sort of consequences of that. Because Bear is like quite a cowardly character. Like, he doesn't face things particularly head on, and he's basically sort of like I'm gonna make this work sort of vibe a lot of the time. He doesn't confront things, he doesn't stop things, he's not very active in that way. I mean, like, the entire premise of a movie is built off the fact that he couldn't just say to Nikki, I have a crush on you, or I love you. And it's these sort of strong emotions of like obsession and possession, which sort of like, to me, is an exploration of like, I mean, there's nothing wrong for couples to kind of be like obsessed without a negative connotation with each other. There's a lot of couples who are super lovey-dovey, but like their world revolves around their partner. That's totally fine, but it's sort of like asking like, when does that point become too much? And it certainly, I think, depends on every couple. There's some couples who would love like their life just revolving around each other the entire time, as long as they're not negatively influencing the world. And other couples who, in many other accounts, people will be like, you seem to almost have like a strictly business relationship or something. It's all very dependent. But yeah, it's very much exploring sort of like what extents does obsession go to, etc, etc. But yeah, I can't even like put my thoughts in order of like necessarily like where to even start like talking about things in this. What I really like how this movie does is how it kind of makes you, I'm not going to necessarily root for the main character, because I'm not sure if I was rooting for the main character, but I'm certainly sympathizing with the main character, and then does a fantastic job of just being like breaking it off slowly and surely, because you get shown Bear at the beginning, and I think you might say, like, because knowing the entire movie, like at the end, Bear is very much a villain, I would say. He's a protagonist, but he's a villain. At the beginning, like, you might be like, okay, I've always hated Bear from the get-go. Fine, but I think that most people will probably see that he's portrayed in a reasonably sympathizable or like empathizable light. Something which probably a lot of people gone to. He's a very lonely person. He's like kind of like shy, isolated, and he's harboring these really strong affections for someone else. Like most people, unless you're romantic probably, or some variety of that spectrum, have had like romantic feelings for someone, like this love, this burning affection and desire, and he just doesn't know how to express it. He's too shy, and I think it's a very relatable feeling for a lot of people, just being like, oh, I don't want to mess things up, like, well, she doesn't feel the same way, that sort of thing. And slowly over the course of a movie, you see it like go more and more, and you see like his like downfall, as you see almost immediately you see his cat dies, like leaving him even more isolated. You see his late night where he's just by himself looking like in fantastic by way use of lighting throughout this entire movie, in the dark, like looking at his phone, just looking at Nikki, like his obsession. And it's sort of like I'm not gonna say it's like a healthy obsession necessarily, but it's like a harmless obsession, maybe is a way to put it at this point, because he hasn't really like taken any action which affects her negatively or anything. I mean, it's basically like, what's the distinction between a harmless obsession and a strong crush? Your mileage may vary, but back to questions, I think, the sort of things it asks. And then he makes a wish, and of course, to his defense, there's no way he thinks it's gonna work, right? He sees it as like a silly gimmick sort of thing. So to his credit, like, is it like a kind of self-centered wish to have? Yeah. And like, is it like superficial? Yeah, but to be fair to him, there's no way he thinks it's going to work. There's no way we think it's going to work. And the only way we know it's going to work is because we know the movie. And then Nikki comes blazing out of the gate, where she just immediately acts so uncanny. Like she's forgotten how to be human. Which is why I'm like, it kind of feels like it's a possession movie where it's like some obsessed spirit basically takes over her. But I think the way director put it is more like what the wish did is it exemplified her possessive, like that sort of affection nature, whether it be for like a sibling sort of bond or like light, friendship, into something wholly consuming all other human parts of her. Where she's just like, oh, my cat just died. Oh, wait, sorry, your cat just died. And then she does her mannerisms, and it's so good. Like, where she just goes, yeah, sorry, yeah. It's just so off-putting, because it's like, on a surface, it's like, it's not crazy, but it's so, like, gets your skin crawling immediately. Because she goes, like, this entire time, back and forth, like something she does like pretty human, and then there's just something off, like when she's crying, when she's saying like, my dad has cancer, but her body's not moving at all, but she's just making a crying noise. And phenomenal lighting work throughout time to time, but so many times Nikki's face is in shadow, so you can't truly make out her expression, but it's like, is it there's that ambiguity, is it there, is it genuine or not? But a lot of the times, like when she switches to that wished version of herself, she has just, you see the lights in her eye like sparkle, which I interpreted it as the real Nikki being trapped inside, and then the rest of it just being like these black irises. And then the entire thing is just like, it's slowly escalating further and further. Like when she comes to visit Bear, I love the lighting of that scene, where she's just like, oh, I had a shower and didn't know what to wear, and she's wearing like a really cute evening dress, which is definitely ridiculous. But the lighting that scene is so good, because she's basically shrouded completely almost in darkness, so you can make out her vague features and stuff, but you can just see the strong light in her eye. It makes her look like a predator, really. And it's so manipulative what she does, but of course it's not like really her as well. And then like slowly, of course, like Bear, to be fair, is also like, I'm not gonna do this, only until she's basically begging and demanding that he's like sleeps with her, essentially, or lies next to her, I should say. Because he can write it off as being like, maybe she is just drunk, and then he also apparently later learns that she does do drugs sometimes. It's like, maybe she's just crazy out of mind right now. But then it just basically escalates, and you see that he takes advantage of a situation. Because then now you're going from like sympathizing to now you're like sort of teetering, being like, okay, like, come on, dude, you shouldn't be doing this. Like, fair enough that you're like, what is going on? Like, I mean, he's even like, Nikki, you're scaring me. Like, you're being so weird right now. To take advantage of being like on the date and a relationship, and then becomes a crux where sort of like he finds out that Nikki was lying about the cancer, and then he's just like, well, whatever, we'll just sort of make it work anyway. But there's amazing juxtaposition as well, because then we have like I can't remember when, but we have some sort of montage, like rom-com style sort of date where everything's like a little bit off. And yeah, you're at this point, you're like, okay, what are you doing there? Stop doing this. And then there becomes a later scene, I can't remember exactly when real Nikki is awake. While possessed Nikki, like the wish Nikki, is sleeping. And then real Nikki's like, please kill me, this isn't me. And the bear's like, you know, it's what I've always wanted to be with you. And then real Nikki's like, you've never been with me. And then she's just like, kill me. And he goes, well, what would be so bad about being with me? Well, he truly goes, this is a point where I think a lot of people, myself included, go, oh no, he's beyond redeemable now. Like, before you can be like, okay, you know, he's clearly just like, it's kind of like, well, what if he got what you ever wanted? Like, what would you do in that situation? If you had like this deep crushed love for someone and they suddenly really loved you back, what would you do? You know, would you go on a date? Yeah, probably you would want to go on a date. You'd be like, I can't believe this is happening. This is amazing. It's like literally, what would you do if your dream came true? And then, but I think it's that point where it's like there's beyond a shadow of doubt. Like before you could be like, maybe he doesn't quite realize the severity, or like he still thinks, you know, you can be like, oh, he's still deluding himself in a way where he's like, no, maybe this is true, maybe this is true, maybe this isn't because of a wish. But by that point, it's like, there's no ways about it. He has to know by now it's a wish. Even before, he definitely knows, but he's sort of just being like, maybe not, maybe not. You can argue for that. And by this point, it's like, obviously not. But he's still like not doing anything to resolve. And he's not, this is a crazy thing, which a lot of people are saying. It's like, why don't you just reach out to his friends? Because he's a coward. He doesn't know, he doesn't want to reach out. He doesn't want to get that help because he wants it to be real. He wants it to work. He, like, when he wants to, like, break off a wish, he doesn't want to break off a wish. He's like, can I change it to make it so that she still loves me, but she's kind of, like, less weird about it? Like, that sort of thing. Only when it comes to worst, like, he can't take it anymore. Right? He even tries to seek out help to try and get a friend to make a wish for him. Which I think is only after Sarah dies. Poor Sarah, who he actually has like genuine chemistry with, just gets murdered by Nikki. And I absolutely adore that scene of him sneaking out to meet Sarah, because you know the entire time it's one of the rare, very slow, genuine heart-to-heart scenes between two characters, and you know Nikki is going to come through at any moment now. You just don't know when. So the entire time, it's so, like, in a vacuum, it's so sweet, it's so heartwarming, it's so calm. It should be the breather, but it can't be the breather in this movie because you know Nikki is coming. And when she does, it's grotesque, it's horrifying, and yeah, Bear basically just disassociates. Like, which I think is like a really common sort of thing that he does, is that whenever something like heightened happens, he freaks out for a moment and then he basically dissociates and he just passively sits there. Again, I think playing into his very sort of passive nature of being unwilling to do anything, which is a very recurring theme. I also think a really, really cool thing we do is when he has two friends. He has Ian as well, who Ian's kind of like actually secretly a douchebag, I say. Like, all his friends are like problematic for different, like, or not great in certain ways. Like, I think Nikki's pretty, like, innocent, I suppose. You don't really get a lot of Nikki, which is kind of a point. You get a very surface level reading of her to, in my opinion, reflect the fact that Bear only has a very surface level understanding of her. And you don't even know if Nikki really likes Bear or not. My interpretation was that she didn't. But I can see why people also think she did, because I think there's a lot of ambiguity, which is kind of a point. There's a point where she goes, if I have a crush, no one would know. And then she also goes directly, Bear, do you like me or not? Now's the time to tell me. But then also she goes, like, ew, when she's got like a gift from him. And then he goes, I'm not sure, that's a weird reaction to have. And then she goes, oh, why am I feeling that way? That feels so weird. And then she also is like, hey, what do you think about Sarah? Because she presumably knows that Sarah has a crush on Bear. So it's all very ambiguous. I mean, it's like, does Nikki have a crush on him or not? Who knows? Like, in my perspective, I think after reflecting, like, in the time of the movie, I was like, I don't think she's into him. But she wants to know, essentially. But then afterwards, I'm like, there's a chance that she would have given it a shot if he actually said something. But he just never did. But yeah, I love the fact that once they get into like this very, very quick relationship and then Nikki's acting like a completely different person, Ian basically goes, hey, it looks like you're basically taking advantage of her and like her sort of not weaken, but like her current mental state, essentially, of whatever's going on. And then Sarah goes, oh, you know, I hope she's not taking advantage of you. They have different perspectives on it, which I was like, that's such a, like, an interesting little detail, especially considering that Ian's been hooking up with Nikki behind, well, not behind her backs, because I guess they weren't in a relationship then, but just on and off. And then Sarah's got a crush. And probably feels a bit heartbroken about the entire thing. I'm trying to think what else. Like, I should be streaming now, but it's such a good movie. The deaths are brutal. I love the shopkeeper vibe. I love it was surprisingly quite a funny movie as well. Like, there's a lot of like very dark humor moments. Like, there's one moment where Bear's just like freaking out, being like, "Where's a one wish willow? I need another one wish willow." And the shopkeeper's like, "A one wish willow? What's that?" Like a classic horror movie, like, "Oh no, this thing doesn't exist anymore." When he's going, "Nah, I'm just messing with you. They're right here. I moved him to the front of a counter." And there's also the moment where Nikki like has a freak out at the party where she basically says the most unhinged stuff possible, which the entire party scene makes your skin crawl because it's so like from everyone else's perspectives, they're just like, what is happening? She reads like this really uncomfortable Hansel and Gretel story, which is both cringe inducing at the same time as it is just absolutely horrifying to hear, because of how grotesque it is. But yeah. And then, like, she does the thing where, like, Baya's like, kiss the person on your left. And then, like, Nikki moves Sarah out of the way to be on his left. It's, like, so, like, from everyone else's perspective, they're just like, she is obsessed. Like, but, well, you know, from our perspective, it's like, she is literally possessed / obsessed. It's all insane. But I find it very funny at a moment after a party where she was like, come on, guys, it was just a joke. It's like, lighten up. Okay, it wasn't a joke, deal with it. It was just like, just finding like the possessed Nikki or the wish Nikki trying to figure out exactly how to be human is crazy. Like, I didn't even talk about the cat at all. Just a revelation of him eating Sandy, a Sandy witch, as I saw one video call it, which is a horrifying joke, is crazy. I mean, it's just such a bleak ending as well, where basically he dies. Oh, but I do love the ending where he takes the medicine. He's going to take his own life, but he can't even do it with a gun because he doesn't want it to hurt, I guess. So he takes all the medicine to sort of mirror his cat's death. The cat, who probably, I don't know, ended up being neglected because how did a cat get into his medicinal cabinet? Who knows? And then suddenly, like, he wants to back out of taking his own life. He's like, no, I'm going to make it work. As he often does. Like, cowardice being a prevailing thing for Bear. And then suddenly, like, you hear the jingle, then you hear the snap, and then it turns out Nikki made a wish for Bear to basically reciprocate the feelings, and he just gets all euphoric, and he just walks up, and they have that one moment of a very sort of bittersweet moment of two absolute insane maniacs, completely, wholly obsessed with each other, perfect for each other in every way, and then Bear dies. It's like the most tragic love story, twisted love story possible. And then Nikki comes back to reality, and then Nikki sees basically her entire friend group dead. Around her, and she's definitely going to jail. She's definitely being arrested. I mean, she kind of did it, which is kind of like the wild part. So it's such a bleak ending. Basically, 3 people die, and then one person's going to jail for life, probably, through something which is no fault of her own. Again, she didn't have any autonomy in this. It was Bear's fault, wholly and truly. But like, it's kind of a thing where it's like you start out being like, okay, I can understand why he did it, to being like, what are you doing, dude? It's the most beautiful car crash there could possibly ever be, is probably how I describe it. Yeah, I don't know what else I would necessarily say about it. The car scene, absolutely horrifying, with a brick. I don't know. Like, the lighting is phenomenal in it. And yeah, as one YouTube comment said, I can't believe Bear fumbled both baddies. Quaff that. Yeah, it's so good. Like, I don't know if it's better than Hereditary for me, but I also haven't seen Hereditary for a while. It's like, it might be joint. I don't know, like, you're making me choose over 2 goated movies? Who knows? Anyway, that's it. Obsession, go watch it. You probably already watched it if you come to this point. I need to go stream. So, if you have been watching, thank you very much. It's been Animal Crossing New Horizons. I've been Dear Darling. Likes, comments, subscription, shares, greatly appreciated. Socials, Discord down below. Hope to see each other again, but for now, it's our farewell. So until next time, bye-bye for now.